Hello, everyone. I'm Jean-Claude BeyondMystic, and welcome to this Precious Metals Weekend Review with Mr. Andy SCHECTMAN. You can find him, of course, at milesfranklin.com. Andy, welcome back to the show, and Happy New Year to you, sir.
Happy New Year, my brother. It's been too long. It's been a crazy, crazy year, no question about it, and glad we made it to the finish line and starting all over again here in 22. Looking forward to it and glad to be back.
Glad to have you on, and thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And I do apologize. Andy and I have had some scheduling issues in December trying to get this show ready for you guys. There's a couple of things that we were trying to get straight and get it right the first time before we announced it. So we have two announcements for you on this show here today. We'll keep that for a little bit later on here. We're waiting for a few more people to join us in the live chat. But everybody, thank you for joining us. And please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Andy, how has been the last 2 weeks of December for you in terms of sale? From what I could see here and from the audience members sending me emails, it seems to have picked up quite a bit from the previous portion in December. What can you tell the audience here in terms of sales, but also tightness in supply for you?
Well, I'll answer the second question first.
Okay.
The tightness in supply is beginning to become a real issue as far as I'm concerned. You know, I've been talking about this probably a little sooner than I should have. It's a curse that I have where I seem to see things coming, at least in terms of my own business, and I'm always early. Mm-hmm. You could always make the statement being early, you know, by 6 months is better than 60 seconds late. But
right,
you've been early in saying this. But look, I see a market that's going to be defined by a difficulty getting product. And let's just look at the major mints. You have 6 major mints. You got the U.S. mint, which has been the model of inefficiency for the past 2 years. And, you know, prices on silver eagles have stayed above $9 U.S. over the price of silver for 2 years. Mm-hmm. That's ridiculous. In November of 2019, they would have cost you $3.19 over the price of silver. 4 months later, in March of 2020, I would have paid you $11 over to buy them back, and they've never come back, really. They've vacillated by a few dollars, but never come back. The Royal Canadian Mint has really done as good of a job as they possibly could to keep up, but they're still, you know, woefully underperforming in terms of the demand that is being issued, and prices and premiums on the maple leaf still very high. Now we get to the other mints. You got the UK mint that ran out of blanks in November, and I paid for 55,000 silver Britannias in November, have not received them yet. Had to pay up front, had to hedge it, running logistics, keep going back and forth with them, and we hope to have them in a few weeks. But this is emblematic of what it's like these days, where in the old days, you used to be able to call the UK distributor or call the mint directly, have an order placed, and it would be on a truck to you within 48 hours. Now it's 60 to 90 days, and paying up front and paying high premiums and running logistics. It's very challenging. So the Austrian mint, which has been great for the past year and a half, has been hammered by Omicron, and they have more or less kind of shut down for a while. The South African mint has been good, but here again, you know, when we sell out of what we have, it's weeks or months before we get new shipments. It is beginning to become an issue. Ultimately, I think it will be. It will be because at some point, people will wake up to the value that is found in metals. And it's not just the people watching this show who get it. It's the mainstream who has been hypnotized by fantastic returns courtesy of the Fed. You know, one of the things that we've been talking about lately is that Bank of America came out with their flow show report saying that $900 billion went into the U.S. equity market last year. That's $100 billion more than the last 19 years combined. Mm-hmm. So when you talk about stimulus, the market's addicted to stimulus and it's addicted to easy money. Here's an example of it. And so these people who have, you know, done well in their equity portfolios and cryptocurrencies, whatnot, at some point, I think, will realize the importance of transitioning to some safety, to an asset class that isn't massively overvalued. And when that happens, even a 3% allocation across the board would be by Rick Rule's estimates, a 6-fold increase in demand. And so I think it will come a point where physical demand will greatly outstrip the availability of supply in this industry. In terms of business, in terms of demand, people watching this show and watching Big Swear and listening to Cliff High and watching Wall Street Silver and listening to David Morgan, listening to all of us out here that are talking about this, are creating a tremendous amount of business for this entire industry. And I just want people to understand that when I'm talking to people about buying metal, it is in the capacity of being wealth. It's not an investment, it's wealth. And I think people are waking up to that right now. I'm sorry, I got the sun coming through the window here. I'm sorry if I look kind of strange. Anyways, bottom line is it's people slowly, the expansion slowly of the mainstream into an asset class that is creating volume this industry isn't used to seeing, and it's weighing heavily on the supply. So crazy demand. And I'll tell you, if there's one comment that I get over and over and over and over again, it's I just don't want my money in the bank. I just don't want my money in the bank.
Well, let's get into that in a second here, because EM Gabriel is asking, hey, if there's a silver shortage or there's a tightness in the market, as you say, why did the spot price tank? So, of course, it's a genuine question, but let's look at the Zero Hedge article from yesterday or this morning. Heads you lose, tails you lose. Yeah. So basically, this is a Fed. They have a difficult choice. Do they crash the economy or do they crash the dollar? Either way, it's not good for you, the listener, if you're in their system. That's the whole point here. But let's talk about how dislocated the spot price is from actual physical demand and inventory.
Yeah, well, look, what that article is talking about is that the FOMC meeting in December, the minutes just came out. And basically, so people were expecting the Fed to taper. They've already announced that. What the FOMC meeting said yesterday that caught everyone by surprise, caught the market by surprise, was that they said they're going to actually double the speed of their tapering. They also said that they are going to, probably by March or April, they are going to let rates start hiking rates and quit cold turkey their asset price or their asset accumulation. They're going to stop buying the bonds, and in fact, they're going to start to sell them. In other words, what the market was expecting was that they would first start tapering, and then they would hike, and then they would sell off their balance sheet. What the minutes are basically saying is that they're going to do all three at the same time. And I don't think the market expected this. And they also said that they're going to sell their bonds at a faster pace than they did in 2017. This is what really spooked the markets, because the last time they did this, it was called a taper tantrum. Yeah. The S&P fell by 17% right on the heels of the repo market crisis, where they completely reversed course and went the other way. Yeah. And I think this is kind of what the market was expecting. The market was expecting, if you look at the long end of the long bond, that really didn't move. It was the 2-year Treasury and maybe the 5-year Treasury, for sure, the 1 and the 2, where you saw this reaction, because the market didn't believe that they could do this on a long-term basis, that it would be a short-term deal and then they would reverse course. That remains to be seen. And what that means by heads you lose, tails you lose, is basically they have two choices. Either they really ratchet up, they become hawkish, they raise rates, they sell off their balance sheet. And if that happens, you are entering into the Great Depression range. A massive recession, if nothing else, and potentially the greatest depression of all. And if you go the other way, you destroy the dollar through inflation. And so they have really put themselves into a pickle. And this is what the market is reacting to. They're basically taking the Fed at their word. And, that's probably not a good idea, because the Fed has lied to us a lot lately.
They have.
Is it a head fake or is it the real thing? I guess that remains to be seen.
You just mentioned inflation there. Janine and I just did a special show on this, and of course, I was kind of being cheeky here with this poster. Sorry, the lifestyle you have ordered is currently out of stock or out of reach for a lot of Americans already. And what we're seeing now in Turkey, they started at $5 a day inflation, then 18% a day inflation, and now I think they're up to 30 or 40% in the last couple of days here. So there's something really, really weird going on around the world. And why Turkey is important in all of this is because they're kind of like a canary in the coal mine, as it pertains to East meeting West, where East, of course, meets NATO. So as they're talking about price controls, as they're talking about maybe implementing some legislation around cryptos, we're seeing that this whole idea here of the fiat currency is dying by the day. And so there's still a lot of people watching this and they're saying, oh, when is that going to happen, JC? You guys have been talking about this for 10, 12 years. I would suggest it's happening now, right before your eyes, although it's been obfuscated. And I know the Federal Reserve, as you say, they tend to lie, and that's just the truth of it all. They're telling you that this inflation is transitory, and now they can't say that anymore because it's so ridiculous. But it's all in your face. Robin is saying here, hey, I've been a customer of Andy for a long time. JC's been bringing this silver forward. He is a solid, trustworthy guy. You know, that's interesting because last time in my show, somebody asked me, hey, JC, why do you keep supporting American bullion dealers? Why don't you support Canadian bullion dealers? You're Canadian. I'm like, I don't know, because I like Andy. He's a trustworthy guy. Did you see his reputation? Go online. That's
I
why.
appreciate that,
And Andy is aligned with our audience. That's the other thing too. We're all on the same page here. And every time I hear you talking about silver, gold, and bullion in general, it shows that you care that people are going to be able to maybe protect themselves through this transition. It shows that you're trying to help them. And I think that's what a lot of people are picking up when they watch the show. It's not just about making profit, which is cool. It's a cool thing too, but it's all about preparing for what's coming and what's actually happening now. And again, Turkey's a big example of all of that. So anyways, a big thank you to you.
That's why I really try to hammer home. This isn't an investment. It's going to perform like one. In fact, I was talking to someone today and he says, well, you call it wealth, isn't it? Don't you view it as an investment? Isn't it going to go up in value? I said, well, yeah, it will perform like one, but it's wealth. And that's really the way to look at it. It's wealth that you hope you never need to use. If you do, you're damn glad you have it. And it's not just for an emergency. It could be an opportunity when asset prices correct. I mean, if the balance sheet, if they really do normalize the balance sheet, if they really do pull away the heroin and let the market really start to go through convulsions, cold turkey, you will see asset prices when interest rates rise, the asset prices have to correct to meet that adjustment. And that's when perhaps selling your gold and silver to take advantage of blue chip stocks selling at single digit price to earnings ratios, paying a dividend, or real estate or whatever it is, trading at fair value. See, this is the problem with the easy money and stimulus that the Fed has given the market for the last few years, is that price discovery is impossible. You know, you mentioned something about Turkey, about price controls, and I think that might be something in our future as well. It certainly is the path of least resistance. As we talked about, tails you lose, heads you lose. If you raise rates, everything crashes and you normalize your balance sheet and you go into a depression. If you go the other way and let inflation run hotter and hotter and hotter, you have a revolution on your hands as people are starving and can't feed their family, can't drive to work, can't heat their home, as prices get so high, as the wealthy with all the assets become enriched and make tons of money. Instead, you could enact price controls, just like President Nixon did in 1971. And, you know, I think that's a very strong possibility. And when that happens, you end up with the quality of goods and services really deteriorating because, look, people work less when they're paid less, and quality costs more. So you end up with an inferior product with less people working. And when they finally remove the price controls, you get what's called catch-up inflation, where the price ratchets to meet that equilibrium. And then you're back where you started all over again. The point of it is that we are at a period of time where the Fed really has run out of options, and whichever option they choose, there's a loser. And I think that's really the issue here. This is why you saw a sell-off over the last 2 days, is that there's a certain amount of people who said, you know what, profit's not a 4-letter word, I'm running for the hills. Not just in precious metals. You saw the S&P down 2%. You saw crypto get ripped. You saw the NASDAQ down. Yep. Everything was falling because, look, this is an environment that is really somewhat make-believe, courtesy of a marketplace that's addicted to stimulus and easy money. And if we don't stop that, you're looking at runaway inflation and big problems on the other side. So this is an interesting time, JC, and this is the reason. And I'd like to make one other point. You know, they talk about raising rates. 8 rate hikes over the next 2 years to get to 2%. Well, 2% is still ridiculously low. It's still negative real returns when you factor in inflation. That's how far down the road we have traveled. And so what happens if they normalize to a more realistic number, 5 or 6%? You know,
What
just
happens if they do what they did with Volkner in
well, that would have been
8%?
in that case, rates would, he raised rates to 20%.
Yeah.
But if we just look at the CPI at 6.5% and the federal funds rate at 0.25%, you're going to have to raise interest rates by 700 basis points just to get above the CPI. And that's half of what it really is. According to John Williams, who you've had on your show, we're closer to 15% in terms of what inflation truly is. So you'd have to have interest rates at 16% to really stop inflation in its tracks. And if you believe what the CPI is saying, still 700 basis points or 7% rates, what happens to the stock market? What happens to the real estate market? What happens to the bond market? We are talking the greatest depression of all time. That's what that article is saying. Heads you lose, tails you lose. Either you raise rates, you kill inflation, and you blow up the economy and go into a depression, or you let inflation run wild and have an insurrection on your hands. You have literally a revolution where you've destroyed the middle class, you've eviscerated the small business, and the people who don't have assets are struggling to make ends meet. The people with the assets become enriched as inflation jacks everything up. It's a very precarious situation. I'd hate to be the Fed chairman right now. I think it would be a very difficult job.
Let's talk about some reality also here. If we look at the work you just mentioned, Bix Weir earlier, let me bring him back up, folks. That's roadtoruta.com and Road to Ruta here on YouTube. The last couple of videos here is very indicative of the setup that Andy is talking about now and all the ramifications of this setup that we currently find ourselves in. And a lot of people were kind of depressed. They're seeing the price go down. They thought they'd see the $600 silver, which was predicted by the WebBot data and many other remote viewers and analysts. And the thing is, in my video last night, we talked about the fact that we might already be there. Like the setup is already there. Just because they haven't told you or they haven't capitulated yet in mainstream media doesn't mean we're not already there. So please go check out these videos that Bix was producing here in the last couple of days, and you'll understand that something is very, very, very different and very wrong this time. How long will this continue? That's always the million-dollar question. But the real question is, how long do you want to wait to buy your insurance so that you don't get screwed with this heads you lose, tails you lose type of scenario that is in fact right before us now.
Think about it this way, JC. Think about it this way. We have wicked inflation, and everyone knows it. And so the central planners, if they let gold and silver meet the equilibrium price where it should be, it would shine a light upon the frailty of this entire system. Yeah. So when you talk about a vested interest in a government that manipulates just about everything right now, I mean, there are no free markets, just manipulations. And if you're going to try to keep the facade of the strength of the dollar and this economy running where it is, you have to step on the canary in the mine shaft. But take a step back from that and look what the central banks are doing. Look what the sovereign wealth funds are doing. Look what the commercial banks are doing. They're loading up on precious metals. They are using the cover that the Fed is providing, that the Fed is giving the green light to Bank of America, to Goldman Sachs, to JP Morgan, all these banks to hold down the price. The rest of the world, the big money, the powerful people, the central commercial banks, the people who are in on the rules, they're accumulating it quietly under the table. And I think that's really, really important. You know, we've talked about that big whale on COMEX. He's standing pat with 40,000 COMEX contracts. He did not sell. He did not take delivery yet, but he still has this controlling $7 billion, $7.5 billion worth of gold that would require a margin account of between $300 and $400 million. You're talking the biggest money in the world is not playing around. They're accumulating metal. Well, the rest of us are worried about $10, $50, $100. We're worried about the fact that it's so counterintuitive. How is it that you have inflation running wild and gold and silver have done nothing? That's exactly what the central planners want. And we'll wake up one morning to a new reality, and everyone will have been right until they're wrong. And when they're wrong, there is no way to catch up once that happens. And mathematically and logically and intuitively, it's going to happen. When it happens, as you said, that's $1 million question.
Right. And our friend Bill Holter told us once, it's a mathematical certainty, this inflation and the setup that we're in here too. But he also said something like, I'd rather be 10 years early to the party than 1 day late. So think about that. The 1 day late suddenly hurts really like a bitch. If you've been listening to this and been procrastinating for so many years and now suddenly it's here. Again, the setup is here. If you really are paying attention, not to the mainstream news, but all of these amazing people who are doing research behind the scene to show you what's going on. You just talked about the whales. There's many other things happening also at the FDIC right now too that seem to suggest something is wrong. Denise in the chat is saying, hey, JC, Andy, my broker Lance is wonderful. He is taking really good care of me. Thank you so much. Thank you. Pascal says, hey, shortage of silver here in Canada. Yeah, and there's a few more comments above there that local shops are out of silver. It's difficult to get some silver, at least in quantity.
Local shops are dead in the water because no one is selling, which is indicative of a precious metals market, especially one centered around concern in that no one wants to go back into Canadian dollars. No one wants to go back into US dollars. They don't care if the price went up or down. They're holding it as a core position. And so if you're not, and this is kind of what I was getting at earlier about the supply, if you're not in tight with the big distributors and the big sovereign mints, you're screwed. Because when I buy from, for example, the UK Mint, I mean, if I don't buy 50,000, 60,000, 70,000 coins at once, 3 months in advance, I'm not important enough to get on the list. And I'm not going to get any when they release them. And so the only way that you can be relevant nowadays in this industry is to spend $1, $2, $3 million 60 to 90 days in advance and have the ability to hedge it, have the ability to run logistics and do all of those things. That money that I paid the UK Mint, you know, way over $1 million, $1.5 million, whatever it was, I haven't had it since November. And I'm earning nothing on it. And so it's an issue. And that's why local coin shops are in trouble in this environment. And I think that will only get worse as people start to want to buy more and more and more. It'll be a tough gig to be in.
For sure. Darina is asking, hey, is it hard for Canadians to buy from the US? Well, you don't need to anymore. Andy, that's a great question, Darina. You must be psychic. What's going on with Miles Franklin Canada?
Yeah, so we have established a partnership with a wonderful company in Canada, a relationship where there is a new website, and it is mfbullion.ca. And it is a relationship with a good friend of mine who is very influential in the bullion market in Canada. And it's a partnership that is finally here. So it's live. And today, in honor of this, that 10-ounce bar right there is on sale for your listeners. It's really important that when they go through the checkout process, very important. Now, we're going to build a link for them to follow in the future, a landing page type of deal for you. But it's very important that when you get to the final checkout phase, there it is right there, that drop-down box. How did you hear about us? You can see those are the people we work very closely with, BeyondMystic, of course, the Ninja, Liberty and Finance, and Big Squeer there, that you click BeyondMystic, that this is where you heard from. It's really very important. But we have priced those bars as competitive as, or more competitive than anyone in Canada. We have quite a few ready to ship immediately. And I believe they are at $4.09 over spot US. Now, the reason I don't quote it in Canadian is because it's too difficult with the exchange rate changing. So we just call it 409 US, and then you'll be able to figure that out. It figures it out for you in Canadian dollars. As the Canadian dollar US dollar ratio changes, it changes a little bit. But we've made sure it's the most competitive price in Canada. So our partners did. And so anyways, we're very excited to finally be able to offer this site.
Well, let's explain this to the audience a little bit more, because Canadian from Miles Franklin, before there was always issue of the exchange rate and getting dinged on the exchange rate, which would make it a little bit not so cost effective for the audience members here in Canada to buy in US dollars. So now here with this website, you can buy directly in Canadian dollars through the website, and also it's shipping directly from Canada. So huge savings there compared to what it was before. Is that right?
It is. And I'd like to make one other point. Here's the truth of it. The truth of it is that in Canada, prices are higher, premiums are higher than they are in the US. And if it's a large order that someone wants to place, it behooves them to speak to their bank to see if it can be in US dollars without taking a big bite out of it. Because if that is the case, you will pay less money in US dollars. But to your point, to pay a 3% conversion fee, call it on $10,000, you pay $300 to the bank just to convert it to US dollars. If any of your listeners are placing a large order, have the ability to convert to US dollars inexpensively, some of the banks and larger account holders may have that ability. We would not run it through this site. We would call one of our brokers, calls, and we would then be able to get you a much more competitive price. But the way that this site is operating, and we were very specific with our partners in Canada to set it up this way, is that if indeed they are going to be purchasing through the site in Canadian dollars, when you look at the other companies in Canada, you will find that these prices should be superior to just about everyone there. And we're making a real strong push to make sure that that is indeed the case. And
well, I'm noticing here right away, just with the maples also, you're a lot cheaper here than most of the competitors here. So that's amazing. Andy, okay. Ronnie says, I have a kilo bar under my pillow. No joke. And that's funny because you, Andy, just sent me this kilo bar here. The Pam Swiss, the one that's on sale now. You had a Canadian subscriber, I believe, who was so impressed with Janine and I. Explain that story for the audience here. And perhaps, I don't know if you know their name, because I wanted to thank them yesterday in the show. I'm like, I don't even know this person's name.
If you let me grab my phone, I can tell you the name.
Okay.
Okay. What had happened was I received a phone call from someone who said to me that they wanted to, just a moment, that they wanted to thank you. And wanted to thank you and Janine for being so amazing and getting information out there. You know, JC, I echo that. You're really darn good at what you do, and you come across as someone who truly cares, and that resonates. I talk to people every day who were referred to us through you, and they all say the same thing. Well, this gentleman placed a fairly significant order and then said, please add 2 kilo bars to the order, one for Janine and one for JC. His last name was Homenko, Homenko. Mr. Homenko is who you owe your gratitude to. Cool. And I'm glad that he's hearing this because, you know, I'm glad he knows that I actually did what I said I would do.
Of course you do. You always do. And going back to my show last night when somebody asked me, hey, why do you deal with these Americans? Well, because Andy's a stand-up guy and he always delivers on price and on time. And I keep getting all of these amazing reviews because I do put out these surveys with my customers to see if they're satisfied with their affiliate programs. And you by far, Andy, knock it out of the park every single time.
I would like to address that one other, you know, look, in business, mistakes happen and misunderstandings happen. And I would like people to please, if there's ever anything, because there have been a few mistakes, misunderstandings, I want people to let me know about it. You send an email to info@MilesFranklin and put Andy. I need that, you know, and just be specific about it. To me, what defines a business or a person is not mistakes happen, but the way that you react to them. The way that you deal with them is what defines a business or a person. And that's something that we're good at. I've always told my brokers and anyone who works for Miles Franklin that a mistake or a problem is nothing but an opportunity to strengthen a relationship. And I mean that. If there ever is an issue with anyone out there who's listening to this, with anything that has happened with or from Miles Franklin, let us know. We'll make it right. That I can promise. So, but thank you for your kind words, JC. One other thing, that picture that you just showed right there, those are U.S. prices for U.S. purchasers on the Silver Buffalo rounds and on the 1,000-ounce Comex bars. Those will not be on the Canadian site with our
right. That's what I wanted to get into that. So, okay, so folks, if you're Canadians and you want to buy in Canadian dollar and save on the exchange rates, save on shipping rates, yes, please do use MF Bullion Canada or mfbullion.ca. So let me bring that link back down in the live chat for you guys as well. Okay, there you go. And then, of course, if you're looking at making a bigger order and paying in USD, then please do just contact Andy directly and arrange your bank wires. And that you can do, of course, at beyondmystic.net/silver, where we currently have our weekly specials for the Beyond Mystic audience. And this is still going forward as is for the American audience as well. And Andy, you talk about how this Canadian website will soon eventually start looking like your new American websites. What's the timing on all of that for the audience who might want to purchase directly online also from you guys moving forward?
Yeah, I've learned the hard way that building a website is really not easy, and especially an e-commerce site. And the one in Canada was a joint effort, and our partners really did all the work. And I'm very, very thankful to them, and they've done a great job. Here in the U.S., it's a little bit more challenging, and it's a bigger operation. And we started it halfway through 2021 and had to kind of start from scratch again about a month and a half ago, as we had to revamp the entire back end of the site. And so I'm really hoping by the end of the first quarter here that we will issue a site that will allow people to purchase online. You know, for a long time, JC, I have resisted doing things online. I figured being old school was a benefit to our clients. And to a degree, I believe it is. Yeah. However, I also realize that if you don't roll with the changes, you get rolled by the changes. And it's time, I guess, for us to finally give in. You know, we had an online site. Our website right now has an old store that hasn't been operational for over a year and a half. And identity theft and fraud really started to get to me, and constantly fighting and battling identity theft and fraud was something that really soured me on the whole online e-commerce deal. Well, my fears have been calmed, and I do believe that we will be able to offer an online site here within the next few months that will be second to none, that will allow people to do just what they're doing here in Canada, purchase online. I realize it's time. Until then, it is my promise that when your listeners call us, that we will give them personalized service and the best price. And it's a little bit more of a pain in the butt to have to call. For some people, they'd rather do that, establish a relationship. Because I'll tell you, my clients that I have personally, they all have my cell phone, and they call me all the time, and they know that if there's a problem, I'm on it, and I'll fix it, and I'll make it right. And if they need me, you know, when you get comments about Lance and about David, I often see here on your site, these are two of my oldest friends since junior high school, and they understand the significance of what they're doing. And, you know, relationships mean something to me. I've been doing this for 32 years, so long before the internet, long before email, and it was always about relationships. And so I think there's something special about that. But I can tell just by the amount of volume coming through the Canadian website today alone, as we just launched it this morning, that there's a lot of people who, yeah, the relationships are good, but I want to be able to buy when I want to buy and do it the way I want. Okay, so we're heading down that path, but it's going to be a couple months before it is fully operational. We just finished the back end of it. And the back end is the hardest part, the hedging and the inventory control and all of these things, because people need to understand that if I have 1,000 ounces of gold in my warehouse, I have to hedge those 1,000 ounces with COMEX. And so anything that we have has to not only be hedgeable, and it has to speak with our inventory. And there's a lot of moving parts in the back end. And now that everyone is remote and not in the office, it adds another layer of complexity. So anyways, we're getting there, and I think we will be there hopefully before quarter two yet this year.
Okay, very good. My dog's about to go ballistic because I believe there's an order here at the door. So Andy, give a quick update to the audience about this machine and how you are along in the process of getting ready here to stamp the first Beyond Mystic bars. And I'll be right back with you. Just hold the fort for me. I'll be right back.
Sure, no problem. The machine is operational. We are being trained on it this week and next week. We plan on making 10-ounce bars and kilo bars within the next 2 weeks. We're going to start producing our own. Of course, I know JC just ran to get something from the door, but for all of you out there, we are going to produce a Beyond Mystic bar. We are going to produce a Road to Ruta bar. And from that point forward, it will be things like Trump rounds and Trump bars. A lot of people have asked for we're going to take some suggestions, but we are very close to producing those. And this is our answer to what I ultimately believe will be a supply chain problem, where product will be very difficult to get. So we've stocked up on silver shot and 1,000-ounce bars so that we are able to have enough silver to start manufacturing the 10 ounce and kilo bars. That machine is the same exact machine that Pam Swiss uses, and those 10-ounce Pam Swiss bars that are for sale, that's the exact same quality that they will look like, and it's a high quality machine, and they're very expensive. This machine sat in a container ship for a month and a half, just about, with all the problems getting them in, and so we're, like everything else, a little behind schedule, but we are flying someone in this week. In the next day or two, he will be here, and then first thing next week, we start our training on making bars. So we're getting there. We're getting there. It should be, I would think, by February, we'll start producing the BeyondMystic bars, and I'm going to do the same thing for Bix and get the Road to Ruta bars and get those out immediately. And the minute they're ready to go, you'll be the first to know.
Well, that's awesome. And I have a draft of our first design for the bar. Of course, the top of it will be the BeyondMystic logo with the 999 purity and all that stuff. And on the back, you guys are going to be surprised, but we're working with two different people here to produce the backside of the bar. So, Andy, we'll be able to stamp both sides, right? Is that correct?
Yes, you will. And absolutely. And I would think that, well, we should get that design from you here pretty quick. I would think that within 2 weeks, we'll probably be able to start producing them.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, I'm excited about that. And a bunch of people in the chat are saying, all right, exciting stuff. Yeah, curioso, exciting.
I'm sure people are getting sick and tired of waiting for the website, waiting for the machine, and so am I. That's kind of where we are nowadays, where things are taking longer than you would expect. But you know what? We're finally getting there. We're excited to be able to do it.
Yeah, awesome. All right. So where do we go from here? Let's just recap very carefully here. So the PAM bar here is the one that's already on sale. It's on the website now, mfbullion.ca. So if you add this to cart, folks, don't forget to, at the end, when you go to your checkout, to click BeyondMystic.
Very important.
Jean-Claude, where did you hear from us? Very important to click that link down. And of course, the Canadian team here will get those items to you in a short order and at the best possible price here for Canada. And of course, if you are our American listeners, you can still buy here. And this is the coupon code for this week, the Silver Buffalo Rounds at $2.99 over spot. This is for the American site in US dollars, and that's beyondmystic.net/silver is the main link. Andy, anything else you want to share with the audience here before we go today? Any outlook on 2022, words of wisdom in terms of preparing and rolling with the punches here, because we are already seeing big changes to all of our financial markets and our organic economies. The change is afoot now. So for the audience here, what would you tell them here on how to hold strong and take the right actions here for their families and themselves?
Yeah, I would think, I guess I would say profit's not a 4-letter word. If you're sitting on profit in equities, if you're sitting on profit in cryptocurrencies, if you're sitting on profit, period, the Fed has got to do something, and either they're going to defend the markets or they're not. But hedging that bet, taking some off the table, transitioning it into real wealth is something that I would strongly advocate. When we talk about repositioning our assets, there are very few places to find value, and I think you will find that in gold and silver, because if it goes the other way, the currency's in big trouble, and the currency is going to depreciate. Yeah. So if they choose to defend the markets, well, that will come at the expense of the US dollar. If they choose to go the other way and support the dollar, the markets are going to crash, and we're going to head into a depression, deflation. And, a lot of people talk about precious metals, in particular, in this case, gold, for its inflationary qualities. And this is one of the reasons why they've stepped on it, because they don't want people to think that gold will protect you in an inflation. But understand this, that it's arguable that in a deflation, in a depression, gold actually performs best, because it is one of the only assets in the world that is not simultaneously someone else's liability. In that environment where corporations and banks and mass closures and defaults are abound, counterparty risk will take on a new significance. That's why I say gold and silver are wealth, and they are assets that are not liabilities simultaneously to a third party. So I guess it's, start accumulating gold and silver on a systematic basis when you can, however you can. And now with the site in Canada, you can do so little bits at a time. And whatever the order size is, JC, we're so happy to work with your listeners. We're so honored to be a part of what you're doing. And I just can't thank you enough. It means a great deal to me. And I will always take that very seriously, as will my entire staff. So until next time, I hope to see you again next week or whenever you want me back. I just wanted to say thank you and happy, healthy New Year to you and yours. Everybody stay well, because these are crazy times.
All right, folks. Well, thank you, Andy. I echo that sentiment, of course, and you're always welcome to come back on the show in these crazy, crazy times, for sure. Folks, that was the Precious Metals Weekend Review with Mr. Andy SCHECTMAN. Please look below in the description box and also pinned at the top of the comments here for both the links for the Canadian site and also for the U.S. customers. I love you guys. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon. Au revoir.